Hello, today I'm going to be doing something that I did a while ago, and it was really fun and I like doing it, which is the strategy showcases. So I'm going to do another one today. This one is, I think, a pretty underappreciated strategy, which is basically getting Perma Brew and Perma Brewing a bunch of pretty cheap towers that have massive gain from the Perma Brew, such as Destroyers, Spike Storms, and you can also do a little bit of a different strategy here and there. But I'm going to be focusing in on the Destroyers, and the reason why this one is not used a lot because Permabrew is a pretty daunting tower to save up for in Chimps mode, and a lot of newer players can't really find a way to do it well. So I'm going to be using Etienne Dark Knight combo to be able to afford Permabrew, and it does it pretty smooth on intermediate maps to even some advanced maps. I'm going to be doing these two examples on Rake, which is an intermediate map, but it's actually pretty difficult, especially to do a big save up on, because it's multi-lane and the lanes don't really match up very well, and it's pretty awkward to do it on. So I'm going to be doing it on Rake and Haunted. Now, because I have to save up for Permabrew, and it is a big tower, it costs about $70,000, we're going to have to be pretty frugal with our money and save up for it early. So I have Etienne. I'm placing him down early just so we can get some more benefits and a little bit of XP as usual. I just do a simple sub dart start, and I'll get a sniper down just to help survive the early game. And then I get this air burst that really pushes through the early game well. It can beat some of the more difficult rounds that appear right after the first few rounds end. And then from that, I'm going to go into a Destroyer. Now, the reason why I get a Destroyer is because it actually does a lot early in mid-game, but it's going to be one of the towers that I am going to be perma-brewing later. So it's good kind of just to have it, because it will be part of the build later on. And it actually does pretty well mid-game, so there's a benefit for you. The sub, it too will have a benefit later on, and that's going to be like a common occurrence. All the towers that we're putting money into will be used later on in the run. So the sub, it's going to be a decamo sub. It's going to decamo the DQ keys, and it won't do much mid-game, but it will be used later on, and that will allow us to save some money for once we buy Permabrew, and then we kind of have to get our defenses up right after, because Permabrew is a support tower, so we need to buy more damage towers so that we can actually use the support tower. And if you don't have that, you actually might get stuck in a position where you have too much money spent in support and not enough money spent into damage. So making sure that we make use of all of these towers is very good, because you can make sure you don't get in that situation. I get a 3-2-0 for now because I definitely want that middle path, cross path, in order to carry the mid game, because it can get a little bit tight. So we do that, even though it has no gain on the Permabrew. I do get some discounts because I will be using a Super Monkey. I do the 203 Super Monkey like I do in all of the Etienne DK runs, and because it is an expensive tier 3, it is worth it to discount it with 3 discounts, but I usually do 2 because it's kind of simpler. And cool thing about Dark Knight is that you don't have to build it in the spot where it's going to stay. So I can put it in a spot where I'll get both of the discounts on it, and these discounts will also be in a much better spot for when we buy the rest of the Destroyers later on in the 90s. But we can also just move this guy back anyways, so why not buy it right here and make use of both of these discounts for the early game. So we get that. After we have the Destroyer and Reactor, we're free to go for that. We're pretty smooth sailing all the way up to 60, so we get that, and then I dark shift him over. This guy's mainly going to be dealing with some ceramics and Moabs. He's really good at that, especially with the stun and the increased Moab damage. I would prefer him to get the Alch priority, but it's not the end of the world. Alchemist buff on Destroyer is really good indeed. And then we get a SPAC at the end, just a 3-2-0 SPAC. Sometimes you want to Alch buff it, sometimes you want to get it to the spiked mines depending on the difficulty, but this map isn't very hard, and if you're playing on a beginner map like Skates, for example, where I did the a 60-second strategy for that, you don't really need much, and you can just go straight into Perma Brew, getting it pretty early. So we get that, and I jump over to 80, where we're going to be using our UCAV abilities with Etienne to beat some of these rounds. So I usually like to do it kind of in the middle of the round, or a little bit earlier than the middle, so you can clean up the end of the round and get it up for 82, and then we can clean up the rest and then get it back. 83 is usually pretty easy. You kind of don't need it there, but 84 you definitely want it to, and then you're going to get Perma Brew right after that. And then again, like I said, we want to make sure that that reactor is put to use so that we can keep it and we don't have to spend more money on it. So we're just going to go straight into damage, getting as many destroyers around the range as possible. I could not get that many with this alchemist positioning. Normally I would prefer to have more. I would prefer to have like 8 or so maybe, but I could not get that many. But this map is not that bad, so it's not the end of the world, and these placements for the destroyers are actually pretty good, so it really does not matter. You also want to have Perma Brew on the Dark Knight. You should have that anyways if you're buying it close, and that should be really good. So now these towers are all doing very well, and the next thing that I want to get is some more towers that synergize. So I'm going to be getting a few Spike Storms. Spike Storms are very good for the DDTs, so you don't really need like Sabo and stuff if you just get some Spike Storms, because with Perma Brew they do pretty well. And then that also helps on round 100 a lot, so you don't need a first strike on round 100, which is really nice. You don't have to do any of that timing or spend a lot of cash in for round 100, because you kind of get that free win as a default. And then you can also use your Etienne UCAV abilities on some of the denser rounds like 98 and stuff. For this run, I also get a Shattering Shells for 98, and I would also highly recommend buying a Mob Glue, because Mob Glue is universally really good. It's the best support tower out there for its price, so you can get that too, and then you're pretty much smooth sailing. The run is free. So this strategy in general, it's not the best strategy, I will admit that, but it is still pretty usable, and if you get good with the save up, it can work wonders. It will not give you free wins necessarily on the advanced maps. It is usable, but it takes a little bit more skill to do. So if you're looking for free wins on the advanced maps, those won't come, unfortunately. But on intermediate maps, most of the intermediate maps and easy maps, it actually is pretty easy. There's not much thought to the ability timing. Of course, this map that I'm doing on is a harder example. I would not recommend like trying to do this for a black border, but if you're kind of crazy like me, you can do it. But again, if you're doing like an easier map, like I showed some of the 60-second strategies, it's really easy. You just place towers in AFK, get the Perma Brew, get some more towers, and then you can AFK the rest of that. It really beats it, but this will be a more advanced version of the strategy that I will be showing. So with the early game, saving up into the Perma Brew, it will be pretty much the same, except the spike factory is a little different. I alch buff it because I kind of need that extra power on it. I get spiked mines because I also need a little bit more damage in the ceramic popping power, and I also get it on 402 because this map is kind of weird. It's a multi-path map, so I want to make sure it's always hitting the intersection. You only want to do that when the map restricts it. So like this map, if you have a 420, even though it has more damage output, all of its spikes won't be going in a very good spot. But on the haunted example, all of the spikes will be used up by a balloon that comes from any path, so therefore it is a lot better. But on this one, you're kind of forced to use the lesser cross path in order to actually get your spikes used. So that's one reason why this is a little harder, because we have to deal with this weird multi-split, which this map is pretty annoying because of that. It's worse than Shoots in my opinion, because Shoots is more predictable. This map, it just goes everywhere. So we get that, and then I'm also going to be using the abilities a lot more crucially. I'll have to do a bit more timing and try to use the UCAV ability to clean up and kind of ensure that will always happen. I do this a little bit of a different early game, but it pretty much is the same. It's the same principles, and yeah, that's that. So while that goes on, and you'll see the run go all the way up to the 80s when I do the UCAVs, I'll play some chill music and enjoy it. Alright, so this is the reason why I kind of set you up with a build on the easier maps that get Perma Brew before round 85, because dealing with multiple ZOMGs is a bit of a pain, and we have to plan that UCAV so it cleans up the one side, and then we have the spikes deal with the other side. I also should be constantly using this the drone swarm ability, but coming up on round 87, this one is a bit of a pickle. The first time I did this, I accidentally used the UCAV at the wrong time, so unfortunately I had to go home and reload. but basically you want to have it clean up the two sides, get that Perma Brew ASAP, and then the UCAV will come down at the bottom to clean up the rest, and the spike should hold out. Once we have that, the Perma Brew, we're just going to be Perma Brewing the tower and clean up these last two ZMGs, and then once we have that, we can go into the destroyers on round 90. We have the camo detection built in, which is nice, and then we have that, so now we are ready to go. This time, as you can see, we can fit a bit more destroyers, which is pretty cool, so we don't have to deal with that not having a little bit of a lack of damage, unlike the last time. But I am going to get a few more support towers after this, so we have a ton of damage, which is really cool. I'm going to get the mob glue. I think I get a Sabo and then a Spike Storm to deal with around 100, and the late game is really easy once you have that. Perma Brew is extremely good, and it's probably better than you think it to be. I think I do get a primary training. Yeah, I get a primary training because my positioning for this mob glue is pretty awkward, but honestly, I did not even need it. We have so many Perma Brew destroyers, it kind of wrecks everything. And you can see with 98, even without a Shattering Shells, just having this amount of stuff just destroys. I get a Submergent support for some reason. I forgot Etienne actually gives camo, so there you go, you don't need to buy that. But kind of look at this. Everything just gets destroyed. It's not even close, they don't even get to the spikes. Around 99, I Sabo, because the DDTs can be a little bit tricky. They're not slow, and you can't use the Pierce as well that the Perma Brew gives, but we do get Spike Storm for around 100, and that cleans up fine. There were a little bit of inside, so I removed that rock, but that's that. Overall, using the strategy on an easy map like Skates is not going to be very difficult. It might be a little bit harder once you get up, but if you're good at the game and can use your ability right, something like another brick with the strategy should also be pretty easy to do. With that, I give you best of luck when you're trying to do this one, and if you have any suggestions of what I should do or what I should cover next, just let me know.